What if I told you that a simple 10-pence coin sitting in your drawer could be worth far more than you think? Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of the top 5 rarest and most valuable Elizabeth II new 10-pence coins, featuring the key dates from 1968, 1970, 1975, 1979, and 1980. These coins were part of the UK's historic move to decimal currency, and while millions were minted, certain years, conditions, and rare varieties can make them highly collectible and surprisingly valuable. We'll explore their history, mintage numbers, unique design details, and what collectors are paying for them today. Whether you're a serious coin collector or just curious about the change in your pocket, you won't want to miss this. Let's get started and see if you're holding a hidden treasure. The 1968 Elizabeth II new 10-pence coin. To understand the 1968 new 10-pence coin, we have to step back into a Britain that was preparing for monumental change. Before 1971, the United Kingdom used a centuries-old currency system based on pounds, shillings, and pence. 12 pence made a shilling, 20 shillings made a pound, and calculations required mental gymnastics that most of the world had already abandoned. Decimalization was inevitable. The British government announced that on Decimal Day, February 15, 1971, the country would officially transition to a decimal currency system where 100 new pence would equal 1 pound. But change of this scale required preparation. Years before Decimal Day, new coins had to be introduced into circulation so the public could adapt gradually. That is where the 1968 new 10-pence coin enters history. It was not simply a new denomination. It was a bridge between two monetary worlds. The 1968 new 10-pence coin was introduced 3 years before decimalization officially took effect. Crucially, it was struck to be exactly the same size and weight as the existing 1 shilling coin. This was deliberate. The idea was simple but brilliant. Since 10 new pence would equal 1 shilling in the upcoming decimal system, the new 10p could circulate side by side with the old shilling. For several years, both coins were accepted interchangeably. This transitional strategy made the 1968 new 10-pence coin one of the most historically significant modern British coins ever produced. The obverse of the coin features the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. In 1968, the portrait used was the first definitive effigy created by Arnold Machin. This portrait shows a young Queen Elizabeth II wearing the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara. The design is elegant and refined, with a sense of youthful regality that defined British coinage for decades. Around the portrait appears the inscription Elizabeth II DG Reg FD, standing for Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen, Defender of the Faith. The lettering is crisp and classical, framing the monarch in a dignified yet modern presentation. The reverse design features a crowned lion passant guardant, taken from the royal arms. The lion stands proudly, one forepaw raised, symbolizing strength, sovereignty, and continuity. Below the lion appears the denomination new pence and the date 1968. The word new was particularly important. It distinguished this coin from the old penny system and reminded the public that change was coming. The crown lion design created a visual link to Britain's heraldic traditions, reinforcing stability during a time of financial transformation. The coin was struck in copper nickel, a durable alloy composed of copper and nickel. It weighed approximately 11.31 grams and measured about 28.5 millimeters in diameter. Because it matched the size of the 1 shilling coin, it feels substantial in hand. In fact, compared to today's smaller 10p coins introduced in 1992, the 1968 version feels almost like a medallion. Now let's examine the mintage figures, because this is where collector interest begins to sharpen. The Royal Mint struck an enormous quantity of 1968 new 10-pence coins to prepare for decimalization. Estimates place the mintage at over 118 million pieces. On the surface, that sounds overwhelmingly common. And indeed, in circulated grades, the 1968 10p is not rare. Many survive today in worn condition, often valued only slightly above face value in the collector market. However, numbers alone do not determine value. Condition, strike quality, and survival rates in high grades tell a very different story. Because these coins were heavily circulated from 1968 onward, finding truly pristine examples is far more difficult than many people assume. Coins that entered circulation in 1968 could have seen years of handling before decimal day even arrived. As a result, uncirculated examples with full mint luster and minimal contact marks are scarcer than the raw mintage suggests. In lower circulated grades, the 1968 new 10 pence coin typically trades for modest amounts, often between 50 pence and a few pounds depending on eye appeal. In extremely fine condition, values may range from 5 to 15 pounds. But once we move into brilliant uncirculated territory, especially coins preserved in original mint sets or saved directly from banks, prices climb significantly. High-end uncirculated examples can sell for 20 to 50 pounds. Certified top-grade specimens graded by professional services can command even higher premiums, particularly if they exhibit exceptional luster and sharp strike detail. Now let's talk about rare and valuable varieties, because this is where the excitement builds. Although the 1968 10p was not known for dramatic design changes, subtle die variations and striking anomalies exist. Collectors search for double die obverse, where elements of the Queen's portrait or lettering show visible doubling due to misalignment during die creation. These varieties can be difficult to detect without magnification, but authenticated examples can sell for strong premiums due to their scarcity. Off-center strikes also appear occasionally. These occur when the planchet is not perfectly aligned in the striking press. Depending on how dramatic the misalignment is, values can rise dramatically. A slight off-center example may bring modest premiums, while a dramatic error retaining a visible date can command well over 100 pounds among error specialists. Another collectible category includes broad strikes, where the coin was struck without the retaining collar, causing it to spread slightly beyond its intended diameter. These pieces have softer edges and a slightly expanded appearance. Because error collecting has grown significantly in popularity in recent decades, unusual 1968 10p errors can bring impressive auction results. There is also collector demand for coins with exceptional toning. Copper-nickel coins sometimes develop subtle golden, blue, or iridescent hues over decades. While toning does not always increase value, aesthetically pleasing examples can command premiums, especially if the surfaces remain unblemished. One fascinating aspect of the 1968 new 10 pence coin is its role as a long-term circulating type. The large-size 10p remained in circulation until 1992, when it was replaced with a smaller version to reduce production costs and align with European coin sizes. When the smaller 10p was introduced, the older large coins were gradually withdrawn. Many were melted down. This melting reduced the surviving population of high-grade examples, particularly those that had not been saved by collectors. The transition from large to small 10p coins renewed collector interest in the original 1968 issue. As people realized the larger coins were disappearing from circulation, they began searching through change jars and coin albums. This surge of interest elevated the coin's profile in British numismatics. Market demand today remains steady. The 1968 10p appeals to multiple categories of collectors. Decimal transition specialists view it as a cornerstone piece. Elizabeth II portrait collectors appreciate it as part of the long-running Machin effigy series. Error collectors hunt for dramatic striking anomalies. And general British coin collectors include it in type sets representing the dawn of decimal Britain. Investment potential depends heavily on grade and rarity. Common circulated pieces are unlikely to skyrocket in value due to the high original mintage. However, premium uncirculated examples and verified error coins have shown consistent appreciation. As more collectors seek high-grade decimal era coins, competition for the finest surviving specimens intensifies. Beyond numbers and prices, the true value of the 1968 Elizabeth II new 10 pence coin lies in its historical symbolism. It represents a moment when Britain modernized its economy while preserving continuity through design. The crown lion stood firm as the nation stepped into a new financial era. The youthful portrait of Queen Elizabeth II signaled stability during transformation. Few coins embody such a clear narrative of change balanced with tradition. When you hold this coin, you are holding the physical embodiment of decimal days preparation. You are touching a transitional artifact that eased millions of citizens into a simpler, more modern currency system. That historical weight adds emotional and cultural value that goes far beyond catalog listings. For collectors building a serious decimal era set, Securing a sharply struck, fully lustrous 1968 example is essential. For error specialists, careful inspection under magnification may reveal hidden treasures. And for long-term investors, focusing on top-grade certified pieces offers the strongest growth potential. The 1968 Elizabeth II new 10-pence coin may have started as a practical solution to monetary reform, but today it stands as one of the most important modern British coins. It bridges centuries of monetary tradition and signals the dawn of decimal Britain. While millions were struck, truly exceptional survivors are far fewer than the raw mintage implies. So before you dismiss a large old 10-pence coin as ordinary, take a closer look. Examine the portrait. Study the lion. Check the edges for errors. Assess the luster. Because within this seemingly simple piece of copper-nickel lies history, rarity, and collector opportunity waiting to be discovered. And in the world of numismatics, sometimes the most overlooked coins are the ones that tell the most powerful stories. The 1970 Elizabeth II new 10-pence coin. The story begins in a moment of national transformation. In the late 1960s, the United Kingdom prepared for one of the most significant monetary changes in its history, decimalization. For centuries, British currency had operated under the complex system of pounds, shillings, and pence. But on February 15, 1971, known as Decimal Day, the system officially changed to 100 new pence to the pound. To prepare the public, the Royal Mint began introducing decimal coins in advance, and among them was the 1970 new 10-pence coin. The 1970 new 10-pence coin was not released for general circulation in the traditional sense. Instead, it was issued primarily within pre-decimalization proof and mint sets to familiarize the public with the upcoming change. This fact alone makes it immediately more intriguing than later circulating dates. It represents a bridge between two monetary eras, the last breath of the old system and the first step into the modern decimal age. Visually, the 1970 new 10-pence coin carries a bold and unmistakable design. On the obverse is the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II by Arnold Machin. This effigy, often referred to as the Machin portrait, is one of the most iconic representations of the Queen. Her youthful profile faces right, wearing the girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara. Surrounding the portrait is the Latin inscription Elizabeth II DG Reg FD, meaning Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen, Defender of the Faith. The reverse design is equally powerful. Designed by Christopher Ironside, it features a crowned lion passant guardant, a heraldic lion walking with one paw raised and head facing forward. The lion is adapted from the royal arms and symbolizes strength, authority, and continuity of monarchy. Beneath the lion appears the denomination new pence, reflecting the transitional terminology used before the simplified 10 pence wording was adopted in 1982. The coin itself was struck in copper nickel, weighing 11.31 grams and measuring 28.5 millimeters in diameter. Notably, this was the same size and weight as the pre-decimal florin, equivalent to 2 shillings. That was deliberate. The government wanted the new 10-pence coin to circulate alongside the florin before decimalization, easing public adaptation. This makes the 1970 issue especially symbolic. It physically mirrors the old system while representing the new one. Because the 1970 new 10 pence was not widely released into general circulation, its mintage is dramatically lower than later dates. Estimates suggest approximately 750,000 were struck for proof and mint sets. Compared to later years that saw tens of millions minted, this relatively small figure makes 1970 the key early date of the series. Now let's talk about value. In circulated condition, a 1970 new 10-pence coin may fetch modest but respectable premiums, especially if it escaped from a mint set and entered circulation. However, the real strength lies in high-grade examples. Brilliant uncirculated coins removed from original sets can command significantly higher prices, particularly if they remain free of contact marks and toning. Proof versions are where collectors truly focus their attention. Deep cameo proofs with strong contrast between frosted devices and mirrored fields are especially desirable. Depending on grade and condition, proof examples can range from moderate premiums into substantial three-figure territory. Coins graded by professional services in top-tier proof grades often see competitive bidding at auction. Error coins from 1970 are extremely scarce, but highly sought after. Because these coins were produced in controlled mint set environments, fewer striking errors escaped compared to mass circulation issues. However, collectors have identified occasional off-center strikes, die cracks, and minor planchet flaws. Any verified mint error from this year instantly attracts heightened interest due to the already limited mintage. Collector demand for the 1970 new 10 pence continues to grow for several reasons. First, it represents the dawn of decimal coinage. Second, it is the first date of the 10 pence decimal series. Third, its limited production ensures long-term scarcity compared to mass-circulated coins of the mid-1970s. As more collectors assemble complete decimal date runs, the 1970 becomes a necessary and sometimes challenging acquisition. What makes this coin especially fascinating is its transitional identity. It is both old and new. It matches the florin in size and weight, yet it carries the bold declaration of new pence. It carries a young portrait of Elizabeth II at a time when Britain itself was redefining its economic identity. For many collectors, this historical crossroads gives the coin emotional as well as monetary value. The 1975 Elizabeth II new 10 pence coin. Now we move forward 5 years into the fully decimalized United Kingdom. By 1975, the public had adapted to the new currency system. The florin had disappeared, and the 10 pence coin stood firmly as part of everyday life. At first glance, the 1975 Elizabeth II new 10 pence coin appears far more common than its 1970 predecessor. But within this year lies surprising rarity and collector intrigue. The obverse still features Arnold Mackin's portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. By 1975, this effigy had become familiar across British coinage. The Queen's youthful image, framed by the Latin legend, projects continuity and stability during a decade marked by economic turbulence, inflation, and political change in Britain. The reverse retains Christopher Ironside's crown lion design with the inscription New Pence. This wording would continue until 1982, when it was replaced with 10 pence to reflect that the transition period was complete. The lion remains bold and commanding, filling the flan with heraldic presence. The standard 1975 10 pence coin was struck for circulation in large numbers, with mintages exceeding 100 million pieces. In circulated grades, these coins are extremely common and typically worth face value. However, rarity emerges in specific formats and conditions. The true key to the 1975 issue lies in high-grade uncirculated examples and proof strikes. Brilliant uncirculated coins preserved in original mint packaging can command premiums, especially in top condition with full mint luster and no spotting. Copper-nickel coins of this era are notorious for developing surface marks and dulling over time, so pristine examples are increasingly harder to find. Proof coins from 1975, struck for annual proof sets, display sharp detail and mirror-like surfaces. High-grade proof examples graded PR69 or PR70 by professional grading services can command impressive prices compared to face value. The difference between an average proof and a top-graded specimen can be dramatic in today's collector market. Error varieties add another layer of excitement. Collectors have identified off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and die rotation errors within 1975 10 pence coins. While rare, authenticated examples can sell for substantial premiums depending on severity and eye appeal. A dramatic off-center strike with visible date and portrait can multiply the coin's value many times over. Another subtle factor influencing value is survival rate. Although millions were minted, far fewer remain in high-grade condition today. Heavy circulation, bag marks, and everyday use reduce the number of premium examples. As modern collectors increasingly focus on condition rarity rather than mintage alone, top-tier 1975 coins gain greater attention. There is also growing nostalgia-driven interest. Collectors who grew up during the 1970s now seek coins from their childhood. The 1975 10 pence coin represents a fully decimal Britain, a time of cultural and economic transition. This generational collecting trend supports steady demand. Market values for 1975 coins vary widely. Circulated examples remain nominal. Uncirculated pieces can reach moderate premiums. High-grade certified coins and rare mint errors command the strongest prices, particularly when sold through major auction platforms where competitive bidding drives final results higher. When comparing the 1970 and 1975 new 10-pence coins, we see two very different types of rarity. The 1970 is scarce due to limited mintage and transitional significance. The 1975 becomes valuable primarily through condition rarity and error varieties. One represents the birth of decimal coinage. The other reflects its establishment and widespread use. Both coins share the powerful Machin portrait and the heraldic crowned lion, symbols of continuity during change. Both were struck in copper-nickel with identical specifications inherited from the florin, and both now hold firm positions in serious decimal collections. For collectors building a complete Elizabeth II decimal 10-pence set, these two dates stand out for different reasons. The 1970 is essential and inherently scarce. The 1975 challenges collectors to locate superb high-grade survivors or dramatic errors. Together, they illustrate how even modern base metal coins can carry layers of history, artistry, and hidden value. In the end, these are more than 10-pence coins. They are metallic milestones marking Britain's leap into a decimal future. They carry the portrait of a monarch whose reign spanned monumental societal shifts. They embody both everyday commerce and collector fascination. And perhaps most importantly, they remind us that rarity does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers from within ordinary change, waiting for a sharp-eyed collector to recognize its significance. The 1979 Elizabeth II new 10-pence coin. The 1979 Elizabeth II new 10-pence coin sits at a fascinating crossroads in British numismatic history. To understand its importance, we have to step back to Decimal Day in 1971, when the United Kingdom officially moved from the centuries-old pounds, shillings, and pence system to a decimalized currency. The 10 new pence coin was introduced in 1968 ahead of decimalization, designed to match the size and value equivalents of the old 2-shilling florin, easing public transition into the new system. By 1979, decimal coinage was no longer new, but it was still in its formative era. The coins of the late 1970s carried a sense of modern British identity, and the 1979 10-pence is part of that foundational period. On the obverse of the 1979 10-pence coin appears the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, created by Arnold Machin. This portrait, known simply as the Machin portrait, is one of the most iconic effigies in British coinage history. The Queen is depicted facing right, wearing the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara. The design is elegant, minimalist, and powerful in its simplicity. Surrounding the portrait is the inscription Elizabeth II DG Reg FD, abbreviated Latin for Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen, Defender of the Faith. The reverse, designed by Christopher Ironside, features the crowned lion passant guardant standing atop the royal crown. This lion, taken from the royal arms of England, symbolizes strength, sovereignty, and continuity. The denomination new pence appears above, while the date 1979 is placed below. The word new remained on the coin until 1981, when it was replaced simply with pence, marking the full cultural acceptance of decimal currency. The 1979 10-pence coin was struck in cupronickel, composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel. It weighs 11.31 grams and measures 28.5 millimeters in diameter. At the time, it was identical in size and weight to the old florin, which allowed pre-decimal coins to circulate alongside decimal issues for years. Now, when we talk about rarity, the first instinct is to look at mintage figures. The Royal Mint produced approximately 78 million 1979 10-pence coins for circulation. On paper, that number suggests the coin is common, and in circulated condition, that's true. Most examples found in change are worth face value. But condition changes everything. High-grade, uncirculated examples of the 1979 10-pence are significantly scarcer than many realize. During the late 1970s, coins were struck for heavy circulation. Many were released in bulk and handled extensively. As a result, finding a truly pristine example with sharp strike, full mint luster, and minimal contact marks is far more challenging than the mintage suggests. In brilliant, uncirculated condition, A 1979 10-pence coin can sell for £3 to £8, depending on eye appeal. In certified mint state grades equivalent to MS65 or higher, values can rise to £15 to £40. Exceptionally preserved examples with strong luster and no visible abrasions have achieved even higher prices at specialist auctions. Collector interest also centers around error varieties. One of the most talked about possibilities with late 1970s decimal coins involves off-metal strikes. While extremely rare, there have been instances across denominations of coins struck on incorrect planchets. A 1979 10-pence struck on a smaller denomination blank, or even on a foreign planchet, would command significant attention and potentially reach into the hundreds of pounds, depending on authentication and condition. More commonly encountered are striking errors such as off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and die cracks. An off-center 1979 10-pence retaining a full visible date can fetch £40 to £120, depending on how dramatic the error is. Clipped planchet examples typically sell between £30 and £80. Die cracks, especially those that create bold raised lines across the lion or the queen's portrait, are collected by variety specialists and can add modest premiums. Another area of interest lies in die deterioration and strike quality. Some 1979 coins exhibit slightly weaker detail in the lion's mane or crown jewels due to heavy die usage. Collectors seeking the sharpest strikes often pay premiums for coins with crisp definition in the crown's arches and clear facial detail in the Mackin portrait. The historical context adds another layer of appeal. The year 1979 was significant in British history. It marked the beginning of Margaret Thatcher's premiership and a period of economic and political transformation. Coins from this year reflect a Britain on the cusp of change, making them attractive to collectors who appreciate historical connections alongside numismatic value. Although the 1979 Elizabeth II new 10-pence coin is not rare in circulated grades, its scarcity in top condition, combined with the possibility of mint errors and its role in early decimal currency history, ensures steady demand. For collectors building date runs of early decimal coinage, it remains an essential piece. The 1980 Elizabeth II new 10-pence coin. The 1980 Elizabeth II new 10-pence coin continues the story of Britain's early decimal currency, but introduces subtle differences in availability, preservation, and collector demand. By 1980, decimal coinage had been in circulation for nearly a decade. Public familiarity with the system was fully established, yet the coin still carried the new pence inscription, a reminder of the relatively recent transition. Like its 1979 predecessor, the 1980 issue features the Arnold Mackin portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse and Christopher Ironside's crowned lion design on the reverse. Visually, the coin appears identical in design to the 1979 issue, aside from the date. However, small production nuances and market factors make the 1980 coin an intriguing study in collector value. The Royal Mint struck approximately 65 million 1980 10-pence coins for circulation. This slightly lower mintage compared to 1979 suggests a marginally reduced availability. However, mintage alone does not determine value. What makes the 1980 10-pence coin particularly interesting is the quality of surviving examples. Like many coins of the era, the majority entered heavy circulation. Contact marks, surface scratches, and dulled luster are common. As a result, truly high-grade specimens are scarcer than expected. In circulated condition, the 1980 10-pence remains worth face value. But in brilliant uncirculated condition, values typically range from £4 to £10. Certified high-grade examples equivalent to MS66 or above can command £20 to £60. Coins with exceptional eye appeal, blazing original luster, and flawless surfaces may reach even higher levels in competitive auctions. Error collectors also pursue the 1980 issue enthusiastically. Off-center strikes are among the most visually dramatic errors. A 1980 10-pence struck 10 to 20% off-center, with the date fully visible, can sell between £50 and £150 depending on condition. More extreme off-center examples may command higher premiums. Clipped planchet errors are also known. Because of the coin's larger diameter, clipped examples are highly noticeable and collectible. These typically trade in the £40 to £100 range. Die clashes and die cracks are another area of interest. Some 1980 coins show clash marks where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet in between, leaving faint mirrored impressions. Collectors specializing in minting anomalies actively seek these pieces. There is also niche interest in transitional and die pairing varieties. Although no major recognized variety has dramatically shifted market values, subtle differences in lettering sharpness and rim formation have drawn attention among advanced decimal specialists. Beyond errors and grade, the 1980 coin represents the closing phase of the new pence era. In 1982, the inscription was changed to simply 10 pence, reflecting full acceptance of decimal currency. This makes the 1980 issue part of a short and finite design period, adding to its historical significance. Market demand for early decimal coins has grown steadily in recent years. As younger collectors develop interest in coins from the 1970s and 1980s, nostalgia plays a powerful role. Coins once dismissed as ordinary pocket change are now recognized as historic artifacts of Britain's modern transformation. The 1980 Elizabeth II new 10 pence coin benefits from this trend. While not rare in the absolute sense, its availability in top condition is limited, and collector competition for pristine examples continues to increase. When evaluating a 1980 10 pence coin, experts recommend examining strike sharpness in the lion's facial features, clarity in the crown's cross and arches, and the smoothness of the fields surrounding the portrait. Even minor contact marks can significantly affect value in higher grades. Both the 1979 and 1980 Elizabeth II new 10 pence coins remind us that rarity is not always about low mintage. Sometimes, it is about condition scarcity, historical timing, and collector perception. These coins circulated widely, passed through countless hands, and served everyday transactions. Yet today, in exceptional preservation or with dramatic mint errors, they command attention and respectable premiums. For collectors building complete early decimal date sets, these two issues are essential. For error enthusiasts, they offer exciting possibilities. And for historians, they represent Britain's confident stride into a decimalized future under the reign of Queen Elizabeth II. The next time you see a 1979 or 1980 10 pence coin, take a closer look. Check the luster. Examine the strike. Look for subtle anomalies, because hidden within what seems ordinary could be one of the most collectible early decimal coins in your collection.